Hello, welcome to Access Paranormal, and tonight we've got our special guest back for part 2 of the Ghost of St Helens. Welcome back, Claire.
Hello, glad to be back.
I know, yeah, and in between we've done a ghost hunt as
we
well.
have, so, and that was actually enlightening. That's sat on me now for 2 weeks.
Oh God, has it been 2 weeks since we've done that?
It's been 2 weeks.
Oh wow, how quick has that gone?
Yeah, I've thought about it every day.
Well, we'll be coming back, we'll be doing a return, won't we, because of what happened. But we'll talk about that near the end if you want.
Yeah, sure.
And then what we'll do then is we'll go and, we can't do it tonight, but we'll do a paranormal investigation and follow up on that one, what we've done for Halloween. It was Halloween, wasn't it, when we done it?
1st of November.
1st of November, yeah. So people would have heard that on that Sunday, the 3rd of November. So now we're following on. Your dog's got a funny sound to it, hasn't it?
She's just Chihuahua, she's like a piggy.
Yeah, so Claire's got her dogs with her for protection, I think. Claire, you're going to tell us some more ghost stories of St Helens, so I'm going to hand it over to you to start it off.
I don't know. There's just so many. So we covered quite a lot last time, didn't we? We did a lot of the mythology, the legends. So I think one of the last things that we talked about last time, which we kind of left on a bit of a cliffhanger, so it makes sense to go back to where the cliffhanger was, and that was Old Moll, the old Stanley Bank Mill.
Yeah.
I was in the middle of the research for that one when we was doing it, so we didn't really have much to tell. Yeah. And it turns out that Old Moll was a real person. Right. Moll Bolton was her name, Mary Bolton. Mm-hmm. And the story goes, so it's at the back of the ship at Haydock Blackbrook Corner, and apparently now we all know a Yicker man, we all know a Haydock man, and these are not soft men, are they? No. These are proper, like, real good hard men, and there is a lot of men that have been terrorised by Moll Bolton at the back of the ship inn. She's a headless ghost. And they see her walking along the back of the old ship inn, this headless woman, and they vowed never to go back. So I've read a few articles, and everyone's heard the rumours of Old Moll, and I found another article, because there's a historian called Peter Harvey, who's been doing this for decades, and he put her down as Moll Bolton. The old Sitting Mill opened in the late 1700s as part of the copper work. And it went for a very, very, very long time. So when I heard this name, Moll Bolton, I was like, right, well, I'm going to start looking around about the late 1700s for a woman that worked in the area called Moll Bolton. Mm-hmm. No sign. I went through all the baptism records, I went through all the death records, all kinds of stuff. And I've been at this for months, decade by decade by decade. It's been painstakingly boring, to be honest. And then I thought, well, maybe her name wasn't Molly. Maybe it was something else. Mm-hmm. Maybe Moll was a nickname for something else. Yeah. And it turns out that Moll is. All right, so people could say that it was Polly, but it's not, it's Mary. So her name is Mary Bolton. And she's from a long line of single mothers. And she's from Hindley in Wigan.
Right, isn't there? Yeah.
She's born in 1919. To a single mother, baptised at, I think it was St Mary's in Hindley, and our Daisy's just having a bit of a nose around.
I was going to say, if you can hear clicking in the background, it's not paranormal because we're at Mill Street.
It's a Chihuahua.
It's a Chihuahua.
So I started looking for a Mary Bolton. Where could Mary Bolton be? But Mary's a common name, Bolton's a common name. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that she was right there in plain sight, and her name is Mary Bolton, born in 1919, and she worked for a guy called John Stock. And John Stock was the man who owned Stanley House, and he was a coal mining surveyor. And she was the servant girl. She was the only servant girl that worked there, and she's right there on the 1851 census.
So you found
Mary Bolton. Yeah. Now, when you can't make metal or any iron or copper or anything like that unless you've got coal. You can't make it hot enough unless you've got coal. So they would use Garswood Old Colliery for their coal. And if you're going up into that direction from Blackbrook, it's an inclining hill. Mm-hmm. So because she was the only servant girl, she would have had to have done everything. So she was the scullery maid, she was the cook, she'd have to go outside and get the hens and the chickens and milk the cows. So she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And she stepped outside when a cart had come loose from the old track to Garswood Old Colliery, and the old trolley that was holding the coal toppled over and just decapitated her right there and then on the spot.
So that's where the headless bit comes from. And John Stock, who owned the house, he was a coal mining surveyor. So it was his job, his main job was to ensure that the coal mines were safe, that the railways were safe, and all the tracks were safe. That was his job. And he didn't. And she died. And that is why she terrorises the men only. So it's only men which she goes after. So if you go walking up there of an evening...
Yeah, you might see her. You might see her more. And I have, when I've talked about this online with people, there has actually been a few people that have said, I've seen her. I have seen her.
Yeah.
She is there. So she is a real person.
Yeah.
Now, there's no death record for her. You get the baptism record. You get her on the 1841, you get her on the 1851, and then she just completely disappears off the face of the earth.
I wonder why.
I don't know.
That's a very strange one, isn't it? That?
It is strange. There's no death record. There is. She's not anywhere on the 1861 census, because I've not just looked here in Lancashire, but I've looked nationally for her. Because as a servant girl, you'd go where the work is, you'd be transported to wherever it is, and she just disappears.
So if she's been killed...
And there's no burial record. And her boss was supposed to have taken care of her because that's his job. So maybe that's why she goes after men. Now, there's been a lot of deaths in that area. A lot of children have drowned. A lot of young, healthy men. Now, my son's 17. He can't swim. He cannot swim. He swims like a brick. But there's no way that a healthy, fit 16-year-old lad would drown in that. Colliers who, because nobody had a bath, they go to the canal to have a wash. So your coal miners would come out the coals on a Friday night, they pick up the wages, they would nip home, have something to eat, then they'd go to the canal for the bath and then on to the pub, and they'd never make it out the canal. There's just too many of them. I wouldn't even be able to give you a number.
Yeah.
I would not be able to give you a number.
It's a hot spot around there,
It is
really.
a hot spot. There's been a few hangings from the trees. A few men have hung themselves from the trees there as well. So when you asked me last time, in the last one, where's the most haunted spot?
I think I've just found it.
That is the most haunted
you
spot.
Found it.
Yeah, so Old Moll Bolton, Mary Bolton.
That'd be an interesting place to
just
go up there and do it.
I'm not coming with you though.
You're not?
No.
I'm not going on my own either, Claire. But we could take a couple of us up there.
You can, yeah. I'll tune in from home.
I'd get lost. Yeah, you'd have to pinpoint it for us though, because I'm
it is.
getting
So
lost.
as you go behind the ship, so if you're coming in from because the ship's no longer functioning as a pub, so you park on the car park and then you've got the big gates, and you go into the gates and you turn right. And it's that road that then would lead you all the way up to the East Lancs.
Right, because if you carry her straight on, you've got the watermill. Yeah. The old watermill.
So as soon as you come in, you turn right at the first turning, and says that you're heading off towards the East Lancs.
Right.
That's the road. That's where she is.
Up and down that road there.
Because that's where the old train track used to run up to Garswood College. So if you look on the 1845 map, it does actually say train track, inclined path. It says it on the 1845
Right, okay.
map.
Got that noted down now. Not to go to.
Yeah, you can go. I'll watch from home.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't. And Beaky come with us. So from that one to another ghost story from the St Helens area.
So we've got another haunted spot, and this is quite active, and it's still active now. And there's because when I was researching ghosts for Halloween this year, because like I said, I am not all the way in with ghosts. Like I'm not 2 feet in kind of person on anything. So what I did is that I went onto these old Facebook groups, you know, like old chat groups. Some of them are not even running anymore. And just put into the search engine ghost stories. And I'm pulling ghost stories up, what people have said, from 2010, 2012, 2016. And it's the same spots each time with a different person giving the same experience. And another one is at the top of Eccleston Hill.
Right.
Now, Eccleston was high Catholic. It was run by the Eccleston family. The Eccleston family have been here since the Norman Conquest, Eccleston Hall and all that kind of stuff. And right at the top of Eccleston Hill is what we know as Richard Seddon's house. Now, the house that he was born in that's still standing. Richard Seddon was born here in Eccleston, moves to New Zealand and becomes the Prime Minister. Called King Dick, right, is his nickname. He was a big advocate for women's rights because New Zealand was the first country to give women the vote under Richard Seddon. He's actually quite a really cool guy to look into. But his house was not the first thing that was there, and a lot of people will know it as Old Eccleston School.
Yeah.
Right, so Old Eccleston School. And there's a school there. Now, I can't quite remember the exact year that it opened, but it was something around about the 1570s, right? Richard Law comes to mind for some reason that he opened it. So this is right in the middle of the Reformation time, because we're flitting from Henry VIII. He brings in the Reformation and cancels the Catholic Church for Anne Boleyn, and then his son comes in, Edward, and he's high Protestant, and then he died quite quickly, and Bloody Mary comes in, and she's Catholic, and she starts persecuting all the Protestants, and then she dies quite fast at 42, and Elizabeth I takes the reins, and she's Protestant, and she's more chilled out than the siblings and the dad about the whole situation. She's kind of like, she was the mediator between the Catholics and the Protestants. And Catholic was just not, the Lancashire was not giving up the Catholicism, because if you read some of the Archbishop's notes on Lancashire, apparently it was just a nightmare, because all it was a bog. It's this big marshland. So anything with the name Moss in it, so Moss Bank, Moss Hall, like we talked about last time, marshland. Yeah. So nobody from down south was coming up here to find out what we were doing. We were kind of left alone to people like Lord Stanley, Edward, 3rd Earl of Derby. He was running the show. The Gerards were running the show. So everything was done in-house, and they were all Catholic. So we managed to keep hold of a lot of our Catholic churches during the Reformation, because we didn't do much plotting until Father John Gerard comes along, but that's a whole other story. So we was quite loyal to the Queen, even though he was Catholic, and she was quite okay about it. So because they built this school in 1857, what had happened before that is that it was a monastery that housed monks. Very similar to the Chantry. The Chantry was an abbey. And across the road, so probably round about where those shops are, there was a graveyard. There's an old graveyard there. And that was where they used to bury the monks. And they'd been burying them there for a very, very, very long time. And then when the monastery closed and they built the school, they didn't move the bodies. They kept the bodies underground and didn't build any houses on it. It was just barren land. They just took the headstones. So people who park up there now will say that they feel like there's something watching them, or that there's something moving, or there's something just not quite right about that area. So at the bottom of Scoles Lane, it's a portico, there is a Catholic church that was built there in the 1700s. It opened 1720 at Scoles Hall, and then it opened its own place in 1760, I think it was. And what you see on Eccleston Hill is the monks walking down Eccleston Hill, right? Because they're trying to get from the graveyard to the Catholic church. Now, in 1922, they decided to widen up the roads. And when they widened up the roads, that's when they discovered this long forgotten old graveyard. Now it is on the 1845 map saying old graveyard, but then it disappears by 1894. So it's in no one's living memory. No one knows or even remembers anything about a graveyard being there. And then when they start digging up the road, the skulls start to come up of all the old monks that were down there. And that's who it is that is haunting that road. Is all the monks, and the monks are wandering. They're wandering around. So they'll go down the Red Rocks and they'll go into Eccleston Hall, because that was a Catholic monastery for a little while.
Yeah.
And because I'm doing Thatterweath right now, there's a rumour, and I'm only just starting on this other monastery that happened. And that was somewhere around about where the old Highfield house was. So Main Street, top of Skulls Lane. And there used to be an old well there called Hankey's Farm and Hankey's Well. And apparently that was an old ancient well, like St Anne's at Rain Hill. And there was a monastery there as well. So they're also wandering there. But this is the curious bit that keeps coming up time and time and time again. The subterranean tunnels underneath St Helens, right? We've just talked about Richard Seddon, right? The Prime Minister of New Zealand. Well, every Prime Minister or everyone famous always brings out an autobiography. And he brings out an autobiography in 1905. And obviously the local press, everybody in the local press is saying, can we do an interview? Can we do an interview for your book? So he gives these interviews to these several newspapers. Bear in mind, this is the Prime Minister of New Zealand. This is not just somebody off the streets, right? The Prime Minister of New Zealand. And he discusses when he lived at Eccleston Hill, the old school where the monastery stood on, is he, as a child, when he was about 10 years old, he was gardening and digging up some flowers and all that kind of stuff, when all of a sudden the ground opens up from under him and he falls into these massive vaults that are under
St Helens,
that are under Eccleston Hill, right, from the old. And then what he says is that his family, who knew about the graveyard, because they moved in the 1860s into that house, so they will have known about the graveyards and things like that, is that he was told consistently as a child by his parents and his grandparents that underneath Eccleston Hill and from these vaults that he'd fallen down lies a whole section of subterranean tunnels. So you've got your road, and then under your road you've got your sewers and your electrical pipes and your gas pipes and all that kind of stuff, but there's another layer of tunnels underneath. And this is from Richard Seddon, right? The Prime Minister of New Zealand. Is going to keep reiterating that. Why is he lying about something like that? And he says that the subterranean tunnels run one to Eccleston Hall, which makes sense because we know that it's been noted that had a priest hall in it through the Reformation. And that another set of these tunnels run all the way into Thatterweath, to where the monastery was, that I'm still trying to pin down.
Right.
So why would Richard Seddon say this? I do not know. Why would he make something like this up? As you can kind of go, well, maybe he's just trying to sell his book. But he's the Prime Minister of New Zealand.
So why is he saying it?
And what he said is that because people are actually said, like, if you've got a tunnel and there's a way in, a tunnel is useless if it doesn't have a way out. You become trapped. So where are the exits? And from Richard Seddon, he said that the schools in Thatterweath, the primary schools that all opened in Thatterweath, are all built on the exits to the subterranean tunnels that run from Eccleston Hill.
So they've got to still be there.
You've got to still be there.
It's a must.
It's a must. So there's wandering monks that are around there as well. But there's another story that happened at the top of Eccleston Hill.
Because can I just say, Claire, there's a monk in the Chantry.
Yes,
there's a spirit monk in there, so that might be connected with.
Yeah. They were all connected. Mossborough Hall, that was Catholic monastery as well. There is a guy who's wrote a book, and he says that Crank Hall had its own monastery, but I can't pin that one down, and he didn't write his source down, so I've got that's a dead end for me, that one. So I'm kind of, a little bit is kind of going, where's the spades? Let's start digging. Let's get under these subterranean.
You can't now. The farmer keeps blocking them up.
I know. So this is why I'm starting to believe in that tunnel that runs from Crankhaven to town. That there's another layer of something else underneath this town, of which they used to transport something around, things around, because a lot of the Romans built a lot of these subterranean tunnels, and for me there was no end of the Roman Empire. It just became the Catholic Church.
Well, if you go on YouTube, there's a couple of people, if you go to Crankhavens, I've actually gone into Crankhavens.
Oh, I have, yeah.
But they only get to so far.
You can,
don't they?
it's all bricked up. All bricked up. But I went onto the British Newspaper Archives and I put in subterranean tunnels, right? So, and then Liverpool and Lancashire and things like that. And the amount of hits I've got, and they were all coming up. You know when they started building the railways from 1833?
Yeah.
They'd found a significant amount of subterranean tunnels that runs all through Lancashire. They're everywhere.
Well, there's some in Liverpool, because there's a tunnel in Liverpool, and you've still got cars in there and shops in there. So there's got to be more.
They're everywhere.
I think they hit that. There's a lot there that we don't know about.
No, there is a lot there, which brings us on to the next subterranean tunnel.
Go for it.
Right, so as you all know, I used to have Mummo's Cafe, and now I'm just Mummo's on my own in the community. And someone said to me one time, have you ever heard about the Poltergeist? It's like, get away here. I've never felt a single thing in this building. Nothing, never felt a thing. We have done a ghost hunt in there, like an overnight thing, and there was little bits happening, but nothing of any kind of significance happened in there. So when I was researching these ghosts, when I've looked in the past, stories have come up in the newspapers, but I've not really looked at them in any kind of depth. So I decided to have a look proper this time, because I thought, well, right, I'm doing a talk on ghosts, so I may as well tell the story of it. So let's find out what happened. And what happened is the night manager. So before the big tower was built, Beecham's used to be placed on the corner where the old Mummo's Cafe used to be, at the bottom of Westfield Street. That was the original Beecham's.
Right.
And they had the top part of it, and then they had the basement part of it, and then they didn't have enough room. So they bought where the garage is now, it's on Law Street. The MOT place. They bought that as part of it as well. And they leased the downstairs to, I think it was like St. Helens Corporation Insurance Company or something equally boring as that. And the upstairs of it was the Salvation Army Barracks, which was close to the Citadel. So it makes sense to have like it's like where all the office workers would have worked, not the people sleeping there, the homeless people. It would have been like the offices for the Salvation Army. And when all the workers would go home over night time, there'd be this one guy, and he'd have to go around and lock everywhere up. Now,
sorry.
So when I used to be in charge of locking up around the back of Mummo's, I used to always make sure, I don't know why, I couldn't put my finger on, and I didn't know the story either, right? I'd always make sure that whoever was the last to leave after a talk or Monday Club or whatever it was, that somebody remained in that building until it'd been round the back and locked up. And I don't know why that was, right?
So you didn't know nothing was in it, because you were just saying
Didn't know nothing. Didn't know a single thing. And in fact, I have this really good friend called Rona. She's an absolutely amazing woman, and she knew I was terrified. So when she was on duty, because she used to volunteer for us, she was like, "Oh, Claire, do you want me to do it?" And I was like, "Oh, please, Rona, please go lock up." But again, I didn't know nothing. Didn't know nothing. And when one night he decides he's going up and he's going around the back and he's locking up, and he gets pelted with loads and loads of stones. And they damaged the doorway behind him, thrown with such ferocity and the brass work behind him as well. He's thrown with an extreme force. None of them hit him. Right.
Like a warning.
So I don't know what it was. And obviously he just thinks, because it's just somebody messing around, isn't it? Right, that's going to be like idiots, absolute idiots. And it happens again the next night and the next night, and it's like a week goes by and it's happening every time he goes around the back to lock the doors. So he brings in his 15-year-old son, because he tells the workers, and obviously the workers are like, you're gone mad, don't be daft, don't be ridiculous, someone playing a trick on you, be wary of you. So he gets his 15-year-old son to come and help him lock up the backs, and he sends his 15-year-old son to go and lock up the backs, and it happens to him as well. So he gets all these stones, but the stones are getting bigger as each day goes on, and there end up being like big slag heaps being launched at him. That there's only a person would be able to throw something. And it seems to be every time he's coming into the back room, he just gets pelted with all this stuff. All these stones just come at him with like bricks and all kinds of stuff. But no one's going to believe him, and no one's believing a 15-year-old lad, right? And the logical thing would be that either someone's going to be throwing things in from probably the Salvation Army barracks over above, but there's nobody in the building, right? And the only way in is through the front door. So he kind of starts telling people this story, and he speaks to Joseph Beecham, and Joseph Beecham's like, oh, okay, whatever. And he becomes petrified, like absolutely petrified. So he goes to the newspapers with it, and he starts telling the newspaper, and the Liverpool Echo picked the story up and run with it, 100% run with it, and it ends up with like hundreds of people. In the end, it's like thousands of people that are coming, like paranormal investigators, because we're getting the rise of the spiritualists during this time as well, all wanting a nosy. So Liverpool Echo, one night when this story was at its height, broke its own records of 2,000 newspapers in one day, just to read the story of Beecham's ghost. So people are beginning to get curious now, and the people who work there as well, they're all a little bit curious. Like, why is this happening at night time, but not when we're here? So a few of the workers say, well, we'll do it tonight then. You know what I mean? Just like, yeah. And what they said was, when they got there and they put all the gas lamps down and sort of sat and waited, like a paranormal investigation team of today, they'll sit and wait, is that every single one of them was overcome with an extreme anxiety and a feeling of danger and to get out. So they all flee. All of them flee. So they phone the police because they think it's obviously someone that's playing tricks and we need to catch this person. And the police come, and there's I think there's 6 coppers, and all of the workers completely encircle the building to catch the culprit. Right, so there's no way in and there's no way out, and it happens. And there's no one there.
The stones
happen. Volunteers then, so the spiritualists and that start saying, well, we want to come in, we want to experience it. So he lets a few volunteers in to help, and it happens to all of them too. And the whole building is enclosed, like you can't get in or out. The roof is being checked. It's policemen. So the policemen are like, let's bring in the dogs. Because if it is somebody that's doing this is quite bad, because look at what's happening. There's 1,000 people on Westfield Street all come here, and it's causing a bit of a problem, really, to be able to control this many people. And they bring the dogs, and the dogs don't pick a thing. So they don't hear any footsteps coming. They don't hear anybody approaching. They don't smell anything. They're rested. They're not like these. They're completely rested when the stones come, and the dogs didn't pick it up neither. And it just keeps happening and happening and happening. So we know the Salvation Army is quite a Christian organisation. So they decide that because obviously it is part of their building, that maybe there's some kind of demon. So rumours start about goblins and demons and all this kind of stuff. So the Salvation Army, as part of the building, step in and say, right, we're all going to come. I'm going to pray over the building overnight. And they do pray over the building, and it quells it a little bit for a few days. And not much goes on, so the crowd sort of disperse a little bit, and there's not much activity. And it starts to come back, but it comes back with a huge, huge force. And And then something really unusual happens, which brings the whole thing to a really fast and abrupt end. Now, I've just told you that Liverpool Echo broke all the records with this paper. They stopped printing. They completely stopped printing. Is Joseph Beecham receives a letter from somebody in Prescott. And it's an educated man. It says in the newspaper that we're not going to print his name, but it's somebody who is fully knowledgeable on engineering and structure work. It's an educated man, and they print the letter in the newspaper, but leave the name out. And what he says is dear sir, meaning Joseph Beecham, I hear that you have still not quelled what is happening in your basement. Well, somebody is out to get you. And what I would suggest is that you start to block up the subterranean tunnels that run from under your building, underneath the vaults, underneath your building. So underneath the street, you've got the basement, and underneath that there's vaults. And this structural engineer, says that from those vaults, there are subterranean tunnels that run all the way to underneath Cowley Hill Lane, under Cowley Hill. And that he would suggest dynamite, because if you follow whatever it is that is in those tunnels, it will become fatal. And the whole thing just gets dropped. And then 12 months later we get Beecham's Tower. The whole thing moves.
So the just moved. And that could have been just because of what's going on.
Yeah. So no more stories come after that letter. They print the letter and then they say, right, we'll follow up. It just gets dropped. Joseph Beecham starts building the tower. The whole business moves over the road. And it's just weird. So we don't know what happens after, because like I say,
I wonder if it's still going on now then, Claire.
Well, no, because no one threw a stone at me. No one threw any stones at me. But I have been down in the basement, because we know there's a World War II bunker under there.
Didn't you do a video with that?
Two people have been down and done videos with it.
Yeah.
I was being dead brave one day, because I've been all the way through it, and there are blocked up doorways, bricked up doorways in there, and wooden panelled, and there's stuff behind it, but it's under about a metre of water.
Yeah.
So it's not the best. And then one day I was in the building on my own, and I've been in 3 times at this point. I was like, let's put the wages on, I'm going to go and have a look at that behind that woodwork. I've been in 3 times, nothing's ever happened, it's perfectly fine. I must have got about 3 metres in. I have never had a panic attack like it in my life. Get out. So I'm up to a metre in water, I've got waders on, I'm underneath the ground, I'm in this basement, I'm in this bunker, and there's no lights, and this overwhelming get out now, do not go. And I got out and never went back in.
You've never been back in since?
Never went back in there.
Do you want to go back in?
No.
So that's Garswood you're not coming to.
Yeah.
And now it's there.
I'll come to Eccleston Hill. I'll go vibe with the monks. I'm quite okay with the monks, because the monks are above ground.
So when you think about it, there's a lot of paranormal activity in St Helens. And I'm sure it'll be the same in Whiston Height and Prescott, all around. Yeah. But it's nice to know that it's there.
Yeah.
We've done investigations here at Mill Street Barracks, so we know how active this place is. The Transport Museum, that's haunted. Yeah. So you could, and there was a place called Flex 2, if you remember.
Yeah, I do remember. Yeah.
Used
to karate there.
Tolman Street.
Yeah, they did karate there.
Yeah, that's gone now as well. But I've done investigations there, and that was pretty good as well.
There were individual houses as well. What I was telling you before about one of these groups, and I'm not going to say the street name on it, because I don't want to freak this person out. But on one of these ghost stories, they were telling us about a house that she lived in and brought her children up. And before that, her auntie had the house and brought the children up. And before that, the grandparents had the house and brought the children up. And every single one of these parents, as they went through the decades, had seen a woman in rollers standing over the cot. But not in no malice. There's no malice in this woman. She's a good woman. She's a good woman. And like tidying up would be done. Weird things like that is what she's saying in this story. So I thought I'd have a look at the house. Right, so see if there's a woman with rollers, if anything happened. And it did, and I swear I've not mentioned anything on it. I didn't comment on it. It was a story from a very, very long time ago, over 10 years ago. And looked at the house which she was talking about. And in the 1940s, a lady was living there with her husband and her 3 children. And one of her children, it doesn't say how, and there's nothing about how, but it says that one of her children was killed. So that could have been any kind of accident, knocked over or whatever. I don't think it was a murder or anything like that. And she never got over it. And her husband came home one day and her head was in the oven and she gassed herself. That's who it is.
And you've seen it?
No, I've not seen it. It's just me reading someone's story from over 10 years ago, going, I'll have a look at that house, having a look at that house and finding out that the decade before her grandparents had moved in and then passed it down a day. So is that the woman in the rollers was a woman who unalived herself through grief of her own child, and that's why she looks after the children.
Right. So she's like a protector, really.
Yeah, she's a protector of the children.
We did, me, James Anthony went to Shirley Park a couple of years back because we'd heard of the ghost of Shirley Park. I'm sure you know about it.
Don't know. I'm not gone up that way.
You'll have to have a look at that
one. Maybe next year.
He mentioned it. So we went and done a ghost hunt there. We put on an investigation. And do you ever remember in the private gardens or the gardens, there used to be a goldfish?
Yeah.
Do you remember it?
I do.
There's like a little square, well, it was an oblong, wasn't it? And the pavement slatted around it. There used to be a little pond with goldfish in it. I'm glad you remember it because nobody else seems to remember it.
I don't think I had goldfish in it when I was a kid, but I do remember that what you're talking about.
Yeah, and we walked where the goldfish were, and we walked ahead of us. And we stopped there. We decided to do a call out there. And you can literally hear, we got the recording of it, you can actually hear footsteps coming towards us on the leaves. You can actually hear them walking towards us.
That's weird.
Yeah. So you have to look that one up, yeah?
Yeah, I will.
So there's another ghost story of St. Helens there.
Yeah, but there's everywhere because everyone's got one.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's got a story. And that's how I built the stories up, is just people telling random stories in newspaper articles. Like, we're just going having a look. Like, there's one that's the bottom of Eccleston. At the bottom, it's St. Helens Road that it's called now. And apparently there's a woman on a bike and she pulls out of Burrows Lane, and she turns up. And I've looked into that one. Oh, that's a true story as well. And it's a woman called Jessie. I can't remember her surname now. From a big tobacco family on Church Street, and they do really well for themselves on Church Street selling tobacco, and they moved to Keswick Road. And she's a governor. She doesn't get married. She doesn't have children. She just dedicates her entire life to teaching other people's children and helping them. And she opens her own little independent school at the bottom of St. Helens Road. And every single day, like a habit, I mean, we all get in the car, go to work over and over and over again. You get there and you go, oh, yeah, right? And that's pretty much what she did. So she got on a bike every single day, and she rode from Keswick Road through Eccleston, down Burrows Lane, onto St. Helens Road to her school that she owned. And then one day she was hit. I think it was 1933, something like that, like 35. And she was hit by the tram that was coming down, and she didn't make it. And that's who that is. So she's real. Jessie.
She's been seen on the...
She's been seen there quite a lot. And it's like, apparently she's as clear as the car in front of you, and then you hit her and the car feels something, and then you stop and it's gone. She's gone. That'd
be creepy. I did one. Yeah, you might like this one actually. I did one in Eccleston. I can't say where.
Yeah.
It was a private house. Yeah. And I was in there this night. I was looking after the little kid, and I thought his dad had come in, and you could actually hear them coming in the house. I was sitting there and thought, he's going to jump out on us now and make us frightened. Nothing happened. So I thought, that's a bit strange, And then all of a sudden, I looked at the doorway and I could see the banisters on the stairs. They disappeared. It went pitch black. And I just got all the little kid and said, "You're sit next to me, stay there now." And I wouldn't say nothing to him because he was only young. Yeah. So I'd say nothing to him. And that's a funny noise, doggy.
He's getting snuggled in the cardigan. Snuggling up in the cardigan.
And it was just like don't go out there or anything like that. So a friend of ours is she does exorcisms and things like that, and she can does house clearances. And so I rang her up while it was happening and explained to her what was happening, and that. Then it just disappeared. And then she said to me, this is what you're going to have to do now. And just as she was trying to explain it to me, Marie came in, and he came in and went, "Oh yeah, we're back," and all this lot. And so I explained to them what had just happened and that. And I said, "I'm going to have to ring her back." So we rang her back, and she told me, "Put the phone on the top of the stairs." Well, that's where I didn't want to go, because that's where the darkness was. So you should have seen me. I was halfway up the stairs and stretching as far as I could and put my phone up there. And she'd done this incantation. And she said, "Right, you can get your phone back now." I said, "Oh, great, I've got to go back." So we had to go and get the phone again now. And it calmed right the way down. Nothing happened after that. But then things started to happen. They were telling us, ringing us, "This has just happened, that's just happened," and that. So she ended up coming down and doing a clearance. I had to do a clearance. We had the smudge stuff, and we were going round, and right at the very end, Claire, she had something on the stairs, and she'd done this incantation, and as it went quiet, all you heard was, "Mummy," and she went, "Ignore it." She said, "Ignore it, it's trying to play games with you," and that. It went, there was nothing, and when we spoke to the family, not had any problems or nothing like that. And then it started to, she said it might come back. So it started to come back. So me and Marie went and done an investigation in there, and it was a strange night. But they moved from that house, and they sold it and moved on. But when they first moved in the back room, there was markings on the wall, like witch markings on the wall and things like that, and a wolf's head drawn there. And then we found out that they kept a magpie in the front room, and the girl who lived there was a bit, she was into all this dark magic or dark arts things and that like that. So like it was a really strange one. Now whether the people who moved in, I don't know whether they did the same thing, and that, but that's what happened to me. Yeah. But on my way home, I was driving in the car, and I've never felt anything in the car. But that night was a strange night. And on my way home, going down Burrows Lane, I thought, I don't feel right. There's something with me in the car here. And I've never felt that in my life. And I'm going along, and I got to Knowsley Bypass near Knowsley Safari Park, and there's a pull in there. So I had to pull in there, and I knew there was something in the car, and I had to pluck up the courage and go, "Get out! Just get out of my car now. You're not wanted here. Go back to where you belong," and all this lot. The calmness just went like that. Because I think it's because I stood my ground. Yeah. But that came from St Helens in Eccleston, and it was coming back to me to Heighton. Yeah. And I thought to myself, if I hadn't stopped that car and said what I wanted to say, would that have followed me all the way home?
Could have been David Earp. David Earp is the spirit of that area.
Is he?
Yes.
So you have to tell us about David Earp then, because that's interesting.
Yeah. So David Earp, he's the guy on Bobby's Lane. And back down by the Griffin. So, 1905. So he lived on what's now Silkstone Street. That's where we lived. He was blacksmith, but he was into poaching. And all the land's owned by the Stanleys. So you're not allowed to go poaching. It's illegal to go poaching because that's their game for their table. Poor people are not to have the game off the Stanleys' land. But he was a bit. It sounded like he was a bit of a wheeler and a dealer. Did a bit of gambling and all this kind of stuff. Fingers in all the pies kind of guy. And there'd been a warrant out for his arrest, and he'd been caught poaching by Knowsley Safari Park. And the police officer caught him, and he severely beat the police officer and he shot him twice. The police officer didn't die though. And he ran off into the direction of where Springfield Colliery was, where Springfield Avenue is and stuff. And he just runs off into that direction, and this disappears. Completely and utterly disappears off the face of the earth. Again, logic is going to tell you he's fell down an old mine shaft, hasn't he? Right? Or he's managed to get away somehow, somewhere. He's gone through the fields, and because as a poacher he'll know where every twist and turn is. So there becomes a national manhunt for this man, right? Because he shot a copper. So, I mean, the copper survived, but they're after him big time. Absolute national manhunt for him. And they do these pictures of him, and he's 5'7", and he's got shaggy hair, and he's got a severely damaged eye and wears a patch. So he's very distinctive looking. Very distinctive looking. So everybody would know who David Earp is. They lifted a few people thinking it was him, Manchester, Bolton, Gloucestershire, I think. Anyway, it wasn't him. There's just no sign of him anywhere. He's just gone. Just disappeared off the face of the earth. So because it's costing a national manhunt's going to cost a fortune, isn't it? And they put a £50 bounty on his head as well. So if people are poor, which they were in that time, they see David Earp and they can get 50 quid in 1905. They're snitching. They are snitching. They've got to blow people in, no issues. And the vast majority of people are against violence towards police officers. They are. I mean, I think most people would be a bit shocked by a copper being shot. So again, does everybody, so they decide, because it's costing a fortune in all kinds of newspaper articles and press articles and all this kind of stuff, and looking for him and arresting people and letting them go, that they're going to send they're going to bring a Liverpool diver in, a professional diver, to go down into the flooded mines and bring the body out so that they can end the manhunt. And that's what they do, and he comes out empty-handed, no body. And then the manhunt continues, and then they decide that what they're going to do is that there's only one option to bring the body out of that mine, is to blow it up with dynamite. He's obviously fell down there. No one's catching him. He's not been seen in St Helens, in the entire country. They've done absolutely everything. Printed his face in every newspaper nationally, up and down the country. No one's coming forward, and nobody has no loyalty to some little blacksmith assistant from Silkstone Street, not for 50 quid. And they send dynamite down to the mine, and they blow up the mine underneath to bring the body up, and he didn't come up for nothing. Never found him. Something happened on that bit of land there, where David Earp is still there. And apparently the ghost comes down Bobby's Lane, down past the Griffin, down Millbrook, down Knowsley Road, past Black Bull, down Dalton Street, because he's going home.
So he's walking home? He's walking home.
So maybe that was who's in your car. Maybe it was David Earp.
Thanks for that. But it was a creepy thing to happen. And but I've never had it since.
Yeah.
You know, it was just that had we don't know what was going on in there.
Yeah.
It was just a strange
quite
place.
A lot of exorcisms in this town. A lot of exorcisms. I came across a story once. I don't really want to give any information, dates and stuff like that. All I'm going to tell you is that it was on Speakman Road. And there was a guy at Speakman Road, and he says he's quite middle-class. He's doing well at work, everything's good, he's got children, he's got a beautiful wife, everything's going really, really well. There's no sign of any form of depression or anything like that. And then one day he says to his wife, "You go up to my dad's and I'll meet you there." And he doesn't arrive. So his dad comes to the house and finds him with his head in the oven, and he gassed himself. So it's the bog standard suicide. But then the most unusual thing happens after. Is the Lancashire County Coroner declares him as being possessed by the devil, and that an exorcism had obviously occurred on this man previously, and that because he could see evidence that an exorcism had occurred on this man, as to why he'd just turned from being perfectly normal to completely and utterly delusional, dead. That they're going to send it to the jury to decide whether somebody's tried to perform an exorcism on him for some unknown reason. Anyway, Dr. Brighouse, who's another Lancashire County coroner, comes in and absolutely blasts this coroner. He's like, "It's really irresponsible. How dare you? People can have depression. They can have early depression." I mean, you can. Absolutely you can. And it's terribly irresponsible to say, from a professional man, from a professional standpoint, that you think that the cause of death is possession of demons. He gets real suicide. why would I come to Canada to say that? I mean, I also think it's quite irresponsible myself to say something like that. Because I don't know what his evidence was, because he doesn't say it. All you know is that the new county coroner that gets assigned to it just goes mad. It's so irresponsible to say that.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Very dangerous, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go on to, because we've got about 7 minutes left, Claire. Let's go on about, we've done an investigation here, didn't we? Yeah. And you came along a little bit later on because you were doing a phenomenal ghost walk.
Yeah, that was mad.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the ghost walk first, what happened, and then we'll go on to the ghost
walk. Oh, Lord. I don't know what happened, but I just went into autopilot. So I put this ghost walk thing on. Let's all go for the ghost walk on the 1st of November around Victoria Park, thinking about 30 people got to turn up. You know what I mean? No one wants to be walking out on a Friday night in November. Like, no one's won't do that. So I'm in the lodge at St Mark's, and I'm putting my wig on and my hood and stuff like that. I mean, like a mic and whatever, because I'm all mic'd up and stuff. I'm going for a walk around the park, and I'm looking through the window, and you see people there. I'm like, oh yeah, it's fine. I walked out to Jamie, and there must have been 100 people stood there. Honest to God, and it just kept coming. Yeah. So someone did a count, and they counted 120 and stopped, and then 150 and stopped. So we had to walk around the park with nigh on 200 people. I don't even know. I can't. I'm only telling you how many people was there in accordance to other people, because when I set off from St Mark's Lodge to the bandstand, I was crying. I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
You did it.
But I did it. Yeah. So I had my piece of paper, and I stood at the bandstand, and I just went, you know what, I don't even need this. I know these stories. And I put the piece of paper down, and I was fine, smashed it. I
think I'd be the same. It's quite overwhelming when you think, all these people have come to listen to me. Yeah. But once you start, it doesn't matter how many's there. No. You're just talking away. Yeah. I find that when it doesn't bother me talking to people. I've not got that fear of, if there was 1,000 people in, I had to say something, I'd go, yeah, okay, I'll just do it. Yeah.
It's like when I do my talks, once I've got past like 2 or 3, I'm fine.
Yeah. It becomes the norm, doesn't it? When I first started the show, I was horrendous. I probably still am. But to some people, I'm probably awful on this. But after the first few, because you're still learning yourself, you're learning as you're going along. So I've learned that, and I'm still learning how to set things up and do things and that, and things get in the way, and you've got to try and an obstacle will get in the way, so you've got to go around that obstacle and carry on. But it was funny because you came straight here after that, and there was 2 girls in that night, and I said, oh, hello, and he said, oh, we've just been for a ghost walk in Victoria Park. And I went, oh, right. I said, that'll be Claire who's done that. And she went, with blonde hair? And I'm going,
I had a wig on.
Blonde hair? Yeah. Well, I didn't know that. And I'm going, no, Claire hasn't got blonde hair. She's dark hair. And she was going, no, this girl had blonde hair. And I was going, well, maybe she's dyed her hair, And then when you come in, you said to me, oh, no, we had a wig on. Yeah. I went, right, okay then. Yeah. But they said they enjoyed it. Yeah. They said there was hundreds of people, not hundreds, but... I think they said over 160 when they mentioned it, but what a success that is.
No, it's definitely a need for it.
It is. And so you came here.
Yes. This has sat on me for weeks now.
And, well, that's it. So tell them what happened.
I don't even, it's kind of a blur.
Because you've got 4 minutes.
Right, okay. So, well, first of all, we was down in the basement, wasn't we?
We were.
And I don't know nothing about it. The ghosts in this building. I know nothing, not a single one. All I know is about a 3-legged dog, right? So I don't know who's here, what's what. And I came downstairs, and you guys were talking to someone, and I knew he was a nurse. I don't know why, I don't know how. It was female, and it was a nurse, and that's all I knew. And it was overwhelming. And like I say, I'm sceptical. And then we moved down here, didn't we, into this basement, and then it kind of went a bit nuts.
That was a strange one. Yeah, we're at Mill Street Barracks. This was an investigation in Mill Street Barracks.
We was down in the other basement, and then that little thing kept saying the names over and over again, didn't it?
One after the other, yeah.
One after the other, these women's names, and then they mentioned it was Harriet and Julia and Sandra, and then they mentioned Edwin. and then Jim Jones as well. So Edwin, they kept saying about Edwin, and they kept saying love, and the people who was with us, they were like, well, has Edwin done something bad to you? Has he done something bad? And I was like, no. Edwin's the person that loves her. This was a love story. Edwin is with one of them. I don't know how, I don't know why, but Edwin's not the bad guy. So, but it was a feeling that the women were trying to tell me something. So I started reeling off all the names of the people that I know who are ex-mayors, people who built this, like Dick, David Gamble, Bishop, Richard Pilkington, William Windle Pilkington, Foster. This guy started naming off all the names that I knew off the top of my head. And it just, the little talking machine just kept saying, keep going. Keep going. But I couldn't remember them all because I was kind of on the spot. So I have actually brought all the names with me to show you, Jamie, because we're going to come back, we're going to read them all the names out, we're going to find out who it is.
We're going to do an investigation.
And then we came up to the children, didn't we? The children on the balcony.
Yeah.
And that was Adam and Genevieve and Ethel. And I forgot the other one.
I haven't got it because...
And I forgot the other one. And they just kept saying all the time, this is brilliant, please come back, please come back, please tell my story. And there's nobody in that building who knew who I was. None of them knew who I was.
It's the first time you'd ever been with us on an investigation.
And they kept saying, please tell our story, please come back, please come back. And we went back down into the basement, didn't we? We said good night. And I'd remembered them all off. And I was like, good night, Adam, Kevin, blah, 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 blah. Right, good night, God bless. And then it went, Ethel!
No, you went, I'm sure I've missed one.
Yeah.
And as soon as you went, I'm sure I've missed one, it went, Ethel. And we all looked and went, no way.
So I'm coming back. I'm going to bring the names back and we're going to talk to them again and find out what they want to tell us.
But that I was like surprised that when that done that. But we're coming to the end of the show, Claire. How quick has that gone?
Oh, it always does.
Yeah. But people can look for you online and you can go on your ghost walks when you start organising them, and I would highly recommend them because I've listened to you and it's fantastic. But again, Claire, thanks so much. You've got to come on again.
Oh God, I don't know. You're not thinking about some more ghost stories.
Again,
I need to tell you about the Poltergeist of Parliament Street.
Right, well, we're doing that on the next one.
And the clown at Tickle Street. Promised that one last time.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do then is you can record them as little stories.
Yeah.
Give them to me and I'll put them on as Claire stories.
Oh no, I prefer it this way.
Okay, then we'll do it this way then, whichever way you want. But Claire, we've got to stop, and I've got to say a huge thank you again for coming in and doing the show with me. Really appreciate it.
Okay.
So thank you. And that's all from Access Paranormal this week. We'll be back again next week, same time, same place. Good night.